So back in my old videos, I used to talk about form a lot, and that was actually something that I, sort of used to do. I used to like really train with form, and I would like limit the weight that I would use strictly just so I could do good form and shit. And obviously, I would allow myself to break at the last couple reps from my form, but nonetheless, you know, I sort of followed form. I considered it to be something that was important. And ever since the start of this year, I'd been sort of experimenting around with ego lifting and shit. And what I'd come to realize was I'd gotten so much stronger simply by ego lifting, you know? And like obviously for a long while I'd been stuck at like 36 kgs, sort of incline dumbbell press each hand. Um, I'd just been stuck at that shit. And so it was primarily because I just wasn't progressing my weights. I just wasn't experimenting with the next weight. I would do a lot with this weight. I would do really good form, but I wouldn't allow myself to do the next weight higher and break out of form. But obviously, it's like, how would you break out of form on an incline dumbbell press? Just lower the range of motion? So what? You're doing heavier weight and you're, you know, going to be doing it for a similar amount of reps, obviously, maybe a little less, but it's like, why limit yourself for form? And I get this all the time, people yapping about form, but like, you don't understand it. Like, yeah, I'm training and my form is broken and I'm, swinging around a lot. Sure. But what is it that's going to make it so different when I feel my muscle when I'm doing it? I feel what I'm targeting. I'm hitting what I'm targeting. Like, I'll tell you this story. Yesterday, I was hitting arms with my friend. And obviously, he knows that I'm an egolifter. Like, he knows this shit. Um, and so I was sort of, just curling around like we were doing like cable easy bar, sort of curls. So I was sort of doing this shit. And obviously, I had some really heavy weight. I was swinging around, lifting the weight. And, he sort of, seeing this, he's just sort of laughed on his own. And, the guy next to us on the other cable sort of asked him, like, what's up? And I was like, look at this guy sort of talking about me. Um, and, when I sort of finished the set, I was like, yeah, what? I'm an ego lifter. And you know why I ego lift? Because I feel my muscle. When I'm ego lifting, but at least I'm fucking targeting my long head and I know exactly what the fuck I'm doing. How am I going, why is that wrong? Why is that condemned and people shouldn't follow your advice? No, I think people should follow that advice. If you feel the muscle and you just want to increase the tension by adding more weight, then you should feel free to do so. And who says that you can't add more weight and just ego lift? And the funny thing is, most of the guys we look up to in the bodybuilding and fitness space, the biggest guys, Ronnie Coleman, all these classic bodybuilders, Arnold, Kevin Levrone, all these guys were massive ego lifters. You want to tell me that Ronnie Coleman rowing his, 405 wasn't ego lifting? Fuck, it was. Of course it was. When Kevin Levrone was curling his 100-pound dumbbells, wasn't that ego lifting? He still was fucking huge. He still was a Mr. Olympia competitor. And those guys are bigger than the current Mr. Olympias. They're bigger, they look better. So then why are we shying away from the way that those guys trained? We clearly can see that the bodybuilders of this time are following the new advice of science-based, and they don't look as good. So we should follow the old guys. We should follow Jay Cutler. We should follow Ronnie Coleman. We should follow Kevin Levrone. All these massive ego lifters. Arnold. Arnold used to fucking, swing around massively when he used to fucking do his rows or his pull downs. You could see the fucking videos. And so my main point is, if the biggest guys are ego lifters and they're strong as fuck, why do we condemn ego lifting? We should just start doing ego lifting. It's just stupid. And I have mentioned this, but it's just when you increase the weight, you are adding more tension on the body. Your body is more forced to add strength and size to the muscle. It is simply forced to add you more muscle because you're adding the weight. You've never done this weight before, and you're going to curl, 30 kilos. Obviously, it'll be pretty difficult, which is why your body will resort to swinging around and doing all this kind of shit. But you want to convince me that this is not hitting my biceps, that it's somehow hitting my shoulder and my triceps and everything. I'm not telling you, of course, it will hit some of those muscles. But point is, the main muscle that's working is always going to be the bicep. It's like saying, oh, don't do T-bar rows because when you do T-bar rows, your rear delts get hit. That's not the way it works. Yes, of course your rear delts will get hit, but you're training your mid to upper back. So then obviously it's like, not because another muscle is involved, therefore we should stop doing the exercise and just do something else. Then you get into the science-based area where you start fucking doing canine flaps because you don't want your forearms fucking get involved. It's just stupid. And so how do you ego lift, to basically put on as much size and muscle as possible, but at the same time, not fuck your body up, not get injuries and shit? So the first thing is make big leaps, but do so safely. And obviously, we are making big leaps. We're adding, let's say, 5 kgs to, let's say, if you're doing barbells, you're gonna add 2.5 kgs on each side or 2 kgs each side. Like the way I measure this is, let's say I'm doing dumbbell curls and I'm doing 24 kilos each hand. Next week, you would try the 26s. And obviously, it'll be far more difficult. Then you would go back to your normal, sort of 24s after that one set of 26. And then you would start to add more 26s and less 24s till it's all 26s, the sets. And then once that happens, you just add another sort of, you swap out the first set of the next week to 28s. And then from the 28s, you go to 30s and so on and so forth. It's just about gradually adding, and obviously not every week. Because if you add the weight every week, you're risking your body. Your body still hasn't gotten used to the old weight. And so you're risking injury. That's how people get injured on this shit. But as long as you're doing so safely like this, and obviously there is going to be ego lifting, but you'll get better with time and you'll be less ego lifting as you sort of ego lift the weight, then you're going to go a fucking long way. And obviously don't go for stupid shit. Don't add 4 kilograms on each side and do dumbbell curls because that's crazy. You might get injured. Now, you might lift the weight safely and, still fucking get some massive, amazing pump and even get stronger, but the risk is far too high. You might feel your forearms starting to feel weird. You might feel your, shoulders starting to feel weird. So just don't, make big, stupid moves. Focus on the small, stupid moves that sound stupid, but they're actually fucking, insanely intelligent. And obviously, if you know you can add 4 kilograms and fucking do the weight, then you should add the 4 kilograms and do the weight. I'm just saying, if you've never done the weight before and you've jumped 4 kilograms instead of 2, then it'd be pretty stupid to do that weight. But if you know for certain that you will do it without any injuries, then you should fucking do the weight, of course. And so my main rule, so that you would determine which exercises are best for ego lifting, is simply all isolation movements, or most isolation movements, don't ego lift on. Like pretty much, let's just say you're doing dumbbell curls or heavy dumbbell curls. That you can sort of ego lift on because it's sort of fine. My main point with like isolation movements is, for example, you wouldn't ego lift on a preacher curl. No one ego lifts on a preacher curl because you might fucking tear your bicep. No one wants that shit. You might ego lift on, let's say, something like tricep push downs, but like, would you really want to ego lift on, let's say, overhead tricep extensions? Like, I don't know, some movements you can't ego lift. I mean, you can. It's like if you add too much weight, you just end up not doing the movement in the first place. You might like fucking start spewing it with your legs and shit. But the point is, be logical about this more than anything. You can ego lift, let's say, on lateral raises. That's fine. But let's say you're doing some other variation, or let's say you're doing rear delts, for example. You wouldn't ego lift on rear delts. Like it's just too fucking shitty. You know, like the whole movement is so awkward. You feel the bone swinging around and shit. It is not a stable movement to even consider eagle lifting on. You know, so there are certain things. It's all about trying. Just try shit out. Obviously, don't go too crazy, but try shit out. Understand the certain movements that you can eagle lift on others that you can't, and simply, do the ones that you must eagle lift on. And so that's really all there is to it for this video. I just think it's so stupid that people just set rules of like, oh yeah, but form is so important, as if the other muscles aren't involved when you're training with form. They talk about how, yeah, when you're eagle lifting, the other muscles get involved. And if you're eagle lifting on, T-bar rows, your rear delts are taking all the movement and your back isn't doing anything. It's like, of course your delts are going to get involved, but you're telling me my back ain't doing nothing? It's pretty stupid to think one muscle is going to carry the whole body on an entire fucking movement. It's just not the way it works. Your muscles are there for a reason. They have this muscle groups. They do this shit together. And so it's like, it's just stupid, the logic that these people go by. But in any case, that's really all there is to it for this video. And as long as you commit to the work, you'll be getting your results.